Yo, what up? It's Chris, Brooklyn Wildlife, Black Land Ownership. We out here. Been traveling, been making my rounds, hitting up the country. Was down in Miami, was out in California, was upstate New York, central Pennsylvania. Been all over. Been around the world, but yeah. And it's been dope, like learning a lot and trying to share experiences, let y'all know about that blockchain conference, letting y'all know about the travels out west and the issues they having with the droughts and the fires, and thinking about sustainability, environmental work. But I rap, since I was like 16, I've been like writing raps and really got into it in college. I'm 43 now, so like I've been making hip hop for over 20 years, and it's something that it's like I think the most consistent thing I've done in my life. Besides like stay alive. And it's one of the most important things to me because it helps me understand myself, helps me understand other people. And I think hip hop is literally the quintessential postmodernist expression of culture. And we can talk about what that means in the future, but for now, I wanted to, remind y'all, like, yeah, I've been out here raising money for Black Land Ownership. Yeah, I'm out here talking about sustainability and blockchain and crypto and the different ways we may re-envision economics or how we look at critical race theory or really just the history in this country. But I write raps, and rap is really important to me. And I was reminded that I should do some of these because like the homie Ryan O'Neal, he put out a really dope project. I think it's called like Love in 3 Parts or something like that. But check out Ryan's work. We were talking, he was hanging out at Gamba, and he was like, yo, that lyric video you did was dope because like, yeah, I dig your stuff, but it's not really for me. Like the way you rap, like the content, not really my thing. But when I saw the breakdown, it made it make a lot more sense. And I got that you're not just throwing things together. It's not just a bunch of words slammed in like out of time or measure, but that like there's depth to it and there's meaning behind it. And I was like, yeah. And I'm sitting there like, well, of course my music has meaning, but I understand how it may not be so easily accessible. And so I want to do like a little lyric breakdown and give y'all also some insight into new work that I'm doing. Because I haven't been posting a lot. I don't put a lot of my stuff on Spotify, even though I do have a bunch of music on Spotify. I do have literally probably like 80 songs up on Bandcamp between the 3 different groups that I've been in, Rosetta Stone, Watercolor, and Project Lumens. And then I have a lot of my solo material. But it makes sense that people don't really know me as a rapper. Like, you may know me as a photographer. You may know me as an event planner. You may know me as a dude that sells t-shirts and crystals or that gets on the internet talking about stuff. But I rap. And so I want to go through some of the new raps and give a breakdown, all right? So I'll start with a few and then we'll get into it. All right. Off the grid where the paupers are princes. Off the hook, off the hinges, with no mechanisms for defenses. 5-day binges that include nights on park benches. Don't throw the book at my friends, they already get judged for use of syringes and being a splendid image of what fringe is. Drug abuse is wicked like the Eastwick witches and winches. The mental machinery sabotage with the wrenches. Catalog the external dialogue, rough like the tempest, relentless. My intensive care model for harm reduction is farm production. That's profitable. Control the means of construction like yarn and buttons, barn and mutton. Be responsible, the honorable constable of the implausible, captain impossible, master of the illogical, maharaja of the horrible idea. The mob says don't think, just take action. Starving with no prospects for growth, you wind up with no moral compunction towards plate snatching. You ain't asking, compulsion with nabbing and grabbing steak rations and break all contraptions. Lacking what you need and not having what you want, that's a Rolling Stone, Mick Jagger that can't get no satisfaction. Well, that's a solid base of passion. You need a lamp of Aladdin, like open sesame and sim, salabim, incense and pollen stems with King Solomon. 10 friends at the entrance followed and bottled in the Metropolitan. With bribes, brides, and wives, side by side, eye to eye, knives pry your pride wide. Inside, you see a divide that hides lies. It's spy versus spy, fried chives and sides, 9 to 5, surprise, surprise, I've arrived. The formerly idolized are itemized and atomized. I surmised, survived, thrived, stock supplies. Time flies, and I observe with the mind's eye. You wait high tide and ride the wave. Waves say bye-bye to fly skies. I don't drink no more, but my homies will chill on the beach with the Mai Tais. All right. And so that one's pretty direct. There aren't a whole lot of metaphors or simile involved in it. But if there's a book, The Prince and the Pauper. So it's like off the grid where the paupers are princes. And this idea we live in the cities where everything is mechanized and we're supposed to have a lot of money and wealth and the accumulation of items and goods and the presentation of being ostentatious and having ornamentation. So who's the prince? Who's the pauper, right? And this idea that like the wealth is in the spirit, is in your heart. It's not really in the physical. So if you're off the grid, where if you're outside of that system, or you're outside of the place to where that's reinforced, where the paupers are princes, and kind of recontextualizing how we view self, off the hook, off the hinges, and not all the you know that saying, like it's off the hook, like the homies off the hinges, and that we out there, like I'm not in a realm where everything is contained and controlled or stationary, right? With no mechanisms for defenses, 5-day binges that include nights on park benches. Don't throw the book at my friends, they already get judged for use of syringes. So when you don't have any way of managing stress, when you don't have any way of managing trauma, when you don't have any mechanisms for defenses, when you can't protect yourself, what happens? Well, some people self-medicate. Some people say, I gotta leave this realm of stress and anxiety and whatever it is that other people do to, work in a cubicle or have a 9-to-5 or have that structure. But 5-day binges that include nights on park benches, don't throw the book on my friends, they already get judged for use of syringes. Like, the homies already know. Like people that live alternative lifestyles don't need the constant harassment and like, well, you're fucking up. Maybe they're doing the best they can. And the idea like the judge throws the book at people, but we judge ourselves, we judge each other. And when people are already being heavily judged, do they need more judgment? Do they need it? And if I have friends who have been addicted to heroin, who are addicted to substances that are very dangerous, and being a splendid image of what fringe is, it's like people look at alternative culture in a kind of deified manner sometimes, or like young people sometimes think it's cool to kind of be in a situation of unsettled and being in a place where like getting high and being fucked up and some of those negatives that come with it are seen as like being cool. And that idea, the splendid image of what fringe is like, no, when you really are fringe, when you really are marginalized, you don't have access to what you need. You don't have access to medical care. You don't have access to mental health care. You don't have access to support. And the people that say they love you, and the people that love in a way that is unconditional. And so drug abuse is wicked, like the Eastwick witches and winches. The Witches of Eastwick, it's an old movie you gotta check out. The mental machinery sabotaged by the wrenches, so that when you already are trying to manage a lot of stress and you self-medicate, or you try to manage your stress by things that cause you more stress, then it's your mental machinery clogged with the wrenches. Like the idea of the Luddites and like other people would purposely destroy the machinery in factories in order to be an obstacle to work and production. And so for yourself, you can sometimes interfere with your own productivity. Then catalog the external dialogue, rough like the tempest, relentless. My intensive care model for harm reduction is farm production. And so looking at like a lot of people have a lot of things to say about how to manage stress, how to manage the world around us. And I'm looking at this idea of harm reduction and what can we do to lessen the pain that people have, and farm production that's profitable. So it's not just have your own, it's not just be independent, but if we could grow our own food, if we could make our own medications, if we had access to some of the clean water, simple things, doesn't that reduce harm? Doesn't that reduce some of the stress? And those are simple kind of steps that we could take. Control the means of construction, like yarn and buttons, barn and mutton, be responsible. And you hear like in one of the motifs of communism is you have to own the means of production. And when you're looking at capitalism and the owner and the capitalist, you're looking at the proletariat and the worker, one of the ways that you start balancing out what happens and trying to manage exploited labor is owning the means of production. Like you get to dictate what happens and what the results are from what you produce. And so I'm thinking like just outside of producing things, like exploiting labor, but own the means of construction, like yarn and buttons, like Gandhi talked about how you got to make your own clothes. So yarn and buttons, then barn and mutton. Well, then that's having the animals and the house for the animals. Be responsible, the honorable constable of the implausible, captain impossible, master of the illogical, maharaja of the horrible idea. And I do believe in hope. I do believe that the unexpected can happen. I mean, it's happened to me, right? I do believe that artists and other people that are illogical or that have these implausible ideas change the world and push it forward. If everyone only does what has been done, how do we progress? And that's why young people are so amazing, because young people push culture forward. Young people push society forward, right? They don't know what's impossible. They just do what they feel, and they have hope, they have belief, they dream. And so as you get older, as I get older, I have to remember it's all right to say things that are impossible, implausible. You know, master of the illogical, Maharaja of the horrible idea. And then some people say, well, you think too much, you know, like you're overthinking it. It's easier. So it's like the mob says, don't think, just take action. Starving with no prospects for growth, you wind up with no moral compunction towards plate snatching. You ain't asking. Compulsion with nabbing and grabbing steak rations. You break all contraptions. Lacking what you need, not having what you want. A Rolling Stone can't get no satisfaction. Mick Jagger, Rolling Stones, their song can't get no satisfaction. And what people do when they don't have enough. Like, what does poverty drive people towards, right? What does hunger drive people towards? What are we willing to do when we don't have what we need? And you don't think, you do. And a lot of people are in that mode right now of like, I don't got time to think. I don't have time to worry about politics. I don't have time to read more books. Them books can't feed my kids. Well, actually, the information in those books can feed your kids. And even if you don't know how to read, figuring out how to grow food in the ground can feed your kids. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean we got to take things from other people, which is a heavy motive in capitalism. And so that's a solid base of passion. But then thinking about, by not having, it does increase your want. It does increase your drive, your incentive. And so I know I've been motivated to do things that I would never want to do because of lack, because of loss, because of me wanting things. And there's an idea in Socratic philosophy or Platonic philosophy, I'm not sure exactly what, that if you had everything you need, you'd be content. And so when people are fighting for power, it means they don't have power. Most of the things we do are because we are lacking things. And one of the incentives supposedly in capitalism is like, by not having everything, it makes us work. It drives us towards wanting what we don't have, and that under communism and socialism, there'd be no incentive to work. But that's, again, a false notion. Communism, socialism, and capitalism are outdated terms, but we'll get to that later. That's a solid base of passion. You need the lamp of Aladdin. And then it's like, yo, you need a genie or wishes. Like the way this system works right now, like the people who live in this neighborhood, and most of the people who have money had money. You already heard the saying, like, you want to make $1 million in music, you better start with $1 million, right? And so it's almost like you need a genie to make it through this world nowadays. And so open sesame, sim salabim, with incense and pollen stems, King Solomon, 10 friends at the entrance, followed and bottled in the metropolitan. And that's this idea of like, it's not just how hard you work, it's luck, it's serendipity, it's your network of people, and ritual, and like heavenly blessings, and there are all these things that feed into how we end up where we are in life. And then bribes, wives, side by side, eye to eye, knives, pride, your pride wide, inside, you see a divide that hides lies. And so most of which we are told in terms of cultural history is just a lie. It's just not true. And that's why you have to teach yourself. You have to learn for yourself. You have to investigate things and not just take what people tell you and believe it, right? Because there are all these conflated issues, there are all these motives, there are all these agendas that are unknown to us, and we have to fight through it. And then there's our own pride. Like, am I willing to say I'm wrong about stuff? Am I willing to say I didn't know what the hell I was talking about? Am I willing to... All right, sorry, my camera keeps cutting off. All right, so I was saying, like, am I willing to admit that I'm wrong, right? When we think about pride and we think about the ego, and we think about how we grow and how we learn, am I able to then get past my pride to learn? And then the idea of spy versus spy, fried chives and sides, and again, back to growing food, 9 to 5, surprise, surprise, I've arrived in that, like, I did not have a majority of my life, I have not had full-time jobs, I've had to work for myself in order to get the resources that I need, but surprise, surprise, I've arrived, to formally idolize or itemize and atomize, I survive, thrive, stock supplies, and like, we can do it. Like, people will tell you, you can't do who knows how many thousands of things that you can do, and it takes getting past your fear sometimes, it takes organizing, it takes working with other people, but that we can find ways to build the resources, work with people in the community that we need to, and stock the supplies. You know what I'm saying? And time flies. Like, as long as you make it, as long as you stay alive, as long as you keep waking up every day, breathing and working towards your goals, it gets there. And it seems impossible. It seems like, you know, if you 15 or you 20 or whatever age, and you're like, there's certain things you want. There may be a year you're looking at, or like it'll take 2 years, and that seems so long. But by the time you get to 40 something, you realize 6 months is nothing. You realize a year is nothing. And some of the things that we want to do are going to take 10 years to do, are going to take, you know, who knows how long to do. And some of the stuff I want to do, it's a lifetime. In order, like, I'm working on a piece to where it's like, I find self with being lost. It can take a lifetime to figure out the meaning of life. And then you do it again and again and again. And so I'm on a lifelong path with the things that I'm interested in. And so, you know, I observe with the mind's eye, wait high tide and ride the wave, say bye-bye to fly skies, and I don't drink no more, but shout to the homies on the beach with my ties. And I'm talking about riding the wave of life, riding the universal wave. And you can't fight it. You can't punch the water and win. You can't force the universe. You can flex the universe. You can try to bend the world a little bit around you, or you can influence the world around you. But sometimes you gotta just observe. You gotta wait high tide and wait for the current to take you where it's gonna take you and ride the wave. But you still have some autonomy in that. When you ride the wave, it's like you gotta position yourself. You have to understand the balance. You have to be in tune with the current, you know? And then that idea of like, you ride the wave just to fly skies, you know? And eventually, you like to believe we find peace. Now, I don't know what peace actually looks like, and I don't know if we ever attain it, but it is something I think about. All right. So that was that one piece. And then I will read you this one. The only weapon we have is love. We can't be more violent than the state. We can't be more violent than the beast. We have to love each other, ourselves, solidarity, and the human experience. Now, we can fight, but we can also obstruct. And we can also remove ourselves from the activities that harm others. And it's hard because we haven't been taught to love, or at least I haven't been taught to love in a particular way. We've been hurt by people that love us, and we've hurt people that we love. I've hurt people I love and been hurt by people that told me they love me. So then how do we utilize love as a weapon, right? There's irony in that. But you can't beat other people into love. You can't pummel other people into unconditional emotion, empathy, compassion, and understanding. So what is our weapon? How do we fight a violent paramilitary state? Is it with weapons? Nah, they got tanks. They got nuclear weapons, you know? So what can we do? Well, we can remove ourselves from some of the dynamics. We can obstruct. When motherfuckers take over a building and don't leave, it works. When people clog up the highway, it works. When people refuse to engage in certain practices that are immoral, it works. When you use your money differently, it works, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about that, because like, the fighting is just not something that seems to be working right now. It seems like everyone's fighting, and it seems like we're all fighting each other, and that's not working. You know, it's not leading us to any understanding. It's not leading us to progress. It's allowing for the 1% of people that have a lot of money and property to continue taking advantage of that imbalance and that disparity, while the 99% of us fight each other. Why do I really need to fight the police? Why do I need to fight the trash people, the folks who work doing construction, immigrants, queer people, white people, black people, men, women, Why are we all fighting each other? It's all one humankind. But it's easy for us to get distracted, and then we lose sight of, like, you hear these birds? You see this nature back here? That's for all of us. There shouldn't be any homeless people. The idea of homelessness is a construction of modern society, right? And so why aren't we focused? Anyway, we'll get into that. All right. And so this next piece kind of deals with, I did write some things that relate to the pandemic. And so this one is out of that. I'm watching the dawn of a new age, not just a new day. So now I'm plotting about how to create a strong new wave. Notice the lotus. Ain't nothing stopping the creative energy that blossoms and floats and spawn from decay. Prohibited from rocking a stage. adapt. Train of thought and focus the locomotive. Things could be worse. Imagine my folks that are locked in a cage. Optimism rotting away. It's more Guns N' Roses. Depression sets in and nothing cures the doldrums. So what happens when you look at the epic evolve and develop and we can't foresee the outcome? Businesses can barely generate any income, and the pandemonium makes me question the future foretold in the Jetsons. It's more like us looking like the Flintstones. And instead of this pandemic being a grand equalizer, the stratification becomes more structural and the pyramid scheme extends to the highest steeple spire. It seems like all people are liars, and the stratagem is survive at all costs. The organic becomes mechanical, it's undignified. Man reduced to animal, and humanity divides. And the demand and supply both subside and slide into a level of conservatism and austerity that's never been seen by somebody in my age bracket. The confusion and mass panic, and the mass become part of political arguments. And people lose faith in the scientists, and people lose faith in the government. But people don't have knowledge of themselves, let alone physics, chemistry, and biology to accurately make decisions. So what happens? Anomie. People lost, wandering. No wonder lust, just fear and opposition, bitter dispositions, a fissure and separatism, cyclical repetition. A new form of despotism where evil replaces the lesser of God's children and the devil reigns supreme and love is only a figment of John Coltrane's horns and cycle of fists. It's vital and primal to resist. Rifles, Bibles, friends that are suicidal. Since the day I was born, I just try to exist. And my anxiety matches my central nervous system overload. From the critical mass weapons grade plutonium or yellow cake uranium, and I express my mania in episodes of depressive anti-establishment delirium, lost equilibrium, heavy water like tritium and deuterium, protective coating like vibranium mixed with adamantium. But that can't stop the fire like my entire mental landscape is Herculaneum, summit tips. And who's running this from Thermopylae to Marathon? Just to face stealth? Just to face self, God and the spirit? Like Trinity's the triumvirate, in love with the punishment. And my trials and tribulations are the tributary, estuary, and bay of pigs, keeping my own records in order to ensure my community will always have a place and a crate to dig. And I build a home for the homies so the creatives always have a space that's safe to live. But why bother? Is safety a false concept, just like freedom? I feel trapped by this body, but this body allows me to experience the infinitude of what life offers. So even though I wasn't born with wings, maybe I'll use my mind to develop flight like the Wright brothers. So maybe my options are infinite. I just need to connect a copper wire, and maybe I'll learn to teleport like Nightcrawler. Started from the bottom, still mutter in the gutter. I write and write day and night, and just recently started considering myself an author. I've always considered myself a vanguard visionary that wanted to field his dreams like Kevin Costner. I built it, and they came, and then we had to close the shutters. So now I'm back trying to milk this cow from all udders, churn the butter and make cheese from blood squeezed out of sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous rock. And I can either sit still or grow and change, build a ziggurat on Plymouth Rock. Now, when they ask about 2020 and 2021, I can say one thing for sure, I didn't stop. We going back to the future, 144,000 gigawatts. All right, so that one, again, not a whole lot of metaphor, but you still might understand an idea of like creating a strong new wave. Notice the lotus. Lotuses bloom in muck and in kind of like murky water. So ain't nothing stopping the creative energy like blossoms and flotsam, floating, but it's a play off words because flotsam, jetsam, whatever. Spawned from decay. Prohibited from rocking the stage. Adapt the train of thought, focus the locomotive, think to be worse. Imagine my folks that are locked in a cage. Now, I could complain about not being able to do shows, or I have to retrain how I think about it. I have to adapt. I can't just allow myself to go crazy thinking about what I want to do and what I can't do. And things could be worse. Imagine if you were in a pandemic, dealing with a pandemic, and you were in prison. If you were one of these kids that are migrants in cages at the border, what would that have been like? You know what I'm saying? And so like, it's more Guns N' Roses, and that's a reference to, the rock group. Depression sets in, nothing cures the doldrums. So what happens when you look at the epic evolve? You can't foresee the outcome. Businesses can barely generate any income, and the pandemonium makes me question the future foretold in the Jetsons, has me feeling more like the Flintstones. And it's like, it's real easy to get depressed, get in your own mind, get in your own head, but it also makes sense. It's not just like depression. It's not just you having anxiety for no reason. Like, look at the world around us. We thought the future was going to be like the Jetsons and flying cars, but instead the cars, motherfuckers are losing their property. And we look at like how the world partially crumbled in the past year or two. This is like something we've never seen, right? And instead of this pandemic being a grand equalizer, the stratification becomes more structural and the pyramid scheme extends to the highest steeple spire, and it seems like all people are liars. So when you look at the news, how can I believe the news when I know they're paid by corporations to advertise certain things? When I know they're owned by other corporations that will not allow them to report on certain things? When I know that these news entities have decided who they will appeal to before they release the content. They know, like, yo, more people believe in conservatism, we'll tell them this. More people believe in liberalism, we'll tell them this. More people want to believe in conspiracy theories, we'll tell them this. Instead of, what does the research convey? What's the conclusions? You know, like, how do we accurately understand what's happening in the world around us? And you got people who are just trying to survive, right? And so it's like the stratagem is survival at all costs. The organic becomes mechanical, it's undignified. Man reduced to animal as humanity divides. And we go into this primitive mindset, right? And idea, demand and supply both subside and slide into a level of conservatism and austerity that's never been seen by somebody in my age bracket. We dealing with, like, rations. And we had to look at, like, the government giving us checks. And now employers don't want to pay us what we're owed, and people wondering why folks don't want to go back to work. It's because it wasn't working in the first place, right? But we've known this at other times. But it's someone that's only 43. We never seen anything like Great Depression. We never seen anything what happened during World War II. We never seen what happened during some other time periods. Hey, what's up? How you doing? And the confusion of mass panic, the mass become part of political arguments, and people lose faith in scientists. People lose faith in the government. But people don't have knowledge of themselves, let alone physics, chemistry, and biology to accurately make decisions. And so when you wonder, you looking at the homies and you're like, how come the homies won't take the vaccine? How come some of the homies are rushing to take the vaccine? Well, who do you believe, right? Can you believe the government in America if you're black? You might want to be careful. Can you believe the scientists? You might want to be careful. Can you believe the media? You might want to be careful. Can you believe the people in your own community? How do they know what they're talking about? What access do they have? And it's like, but people don't have knowledge of themselves, let alone the physics, chemistry, and biology to accurately make decisions. Yeah, if I don't even have time to know myself, if I don't even have a mechanism for understanding my internal world, how am I supposed to understand the world around me? How am I supposed to understand if this vaccine is safe or not? How am I supposed to read these reports and know that they haven't been doctored or been altered? And so we're yelling at each other and getting mad at, like, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're an asshole. Oh, you're a sheep because you are pro-vax. How do we know anything about the science when we don't even understand ourselves? Where does our consciousness lie? Do we even understand that? Where's the soul? The thing that's almost integrally connected to us. We don't even understand that. But we're supposed to understand all these things in the world. We're supposed to understand how to do our taxes and save money and make money and work with banks and get into finance, be a good person, be compassionate. How? Right? And so what happens? Anomie. No wanderlust. Instead of people wondering, seeking, we just are lost wandering. Like the blind leading the blind. Just fear and opposition, bitter dispositions, a fissure and separatism, cyclical repetition. And we just back into the feuding. We're back into us fighting with each other. And for what, right? A new form of despotism where evil replaces the lesser of God's children and the devil reigns supreme, and love is only a figment of John Coltrane's horns and cycle of fists. Now, children of a lesser God, that's a phrase from, like, I believe, a movie. And this idea, is money evil? Is the king evil? And so a new form of despotism, instead of enlightened despotism, evil replaces the lesser of God's children. Because when you think of, like, well, we're all God's children, right? Do some people get the benefit? Was Jesus better? Right? But now evil replaces all that, and the devil reigns supreme. But John Coltrane had love supreme, I believe. And it said devil reigns supreme, and love is only a figment of John Coltrane's horns. John Coltrane played a horn, and cycle of fists. And apparently John Coltrane mapped out how music notes work with each other, and it plays into the cycle of fists if you're into, I believe, the pentatonic scale. I don't know a whole lot about that, but it's something musicians have talked to me about. It's vital and primal to resist. And it's the idea we're made to be rebellious. We're made to question authority. It's actually nonsensical to expect 350 million people to do the same thing. So when we don't all agree, that's okay. We have to figure out how to communicate past that disagreement, because we aren't made to all agree on the same thing, right? So rifles, Bibles, friends that are suicidal, and since the day I was born, I just try to exist. So religion has been a tool of coercion, violence, rifles has been a tool of coercion, and some people just say, I'm not dealing with it, and they take their own lives because they can't deal with, or don't want to, or whatever else happens, so that this isn't what they want to be involved in. And none of those three things work for me. I don't want to be violent towards other people. I don't want people to be violent towards me. The religion did not give me the answers that I was seeking. Now, it's spirituality, and I do have a belief in a higher power, or what you may call God, but the Bible or the Quran or these books did not give the answers that work for other people. And since the day I was born, I just try to exist. And that's the base level of I just trying to stay alive. And people ask me all types of questions and want to be like, so what do you want to do in 5 years? What do you want to do in 10 years? It's like, yo, I just want to be alive. And obviously, with the art and music I make, I want to go deeper. With the education stuff I'm working on, I want to go deeper. With the land projects, but those are contingent upon me being alive, and I'd like to be happy, whatever that means, right? And so my anxiety matches my central nervous system overload. You see all this inundation? You see all these things happening? And so my feeling anxious makes sense. When you got these helicopters, you got cars, you got poison in the water, you got people selling products or on the package that says it causes cancer, but they still can sell it in the store. Why does the government allow that? So of course I'm going to be anxious. Do I know what's actually safe or not? And so my anxiety matches the central nervous system overload from the critical mass weapons grade plutonium, yellow cake uranium. I express my mania in episodes of depressive anti-establishment delirium, lost equilibrium, heavy water like tritium and deuterium, protective coating like vibranium mixed with adamantium. But that can't stop the fire like my entire mental landscape's Herculaneum, summit tip. And Pompeii, Herculaneum, Vesuvius, and the whole, civilization was destroyed. And so the fire of that volcanic eruption, and so like I erupt emotionally in making my music. But protective coating, like I do protect myself, like vibranium mixed with adamantium. You got to be in the comic books and understand that vibranium, Black Panther, adamantium, Wolverine. And when I say I express my mania in episodes of depressive anti-establishment delirium, this idea of people who are bipolar or manic depressive, and that they go from peak to valley. And that when they're in manic episodes, they want to do so much and they overextend themselves. And then when they're depressed, you don't even want to get out of bed. And so the way I express that, though, is anti-establishment, right? Delirium. And some people would just say that's craziness, right? But it's not. It's what I have to do to protect myself, express myself, and to not let the internal fire destroy me, right? To not let this stress destroy me. So who's running this? From Thermopylae to Marathon. Run a marathon and Thermopylae, these are places in, I believe, ancient Greece or Roman areas. Marathon, 26.2 miles. So who's running this? Like, who's running this society? And just to face self, God, and spirit, like Trinity's the triumvirate. And that gets into, I believe, the Roman Council. There was a time period where there were three leaders that worked together. They were the triumvirate. And so in my way of looking at it, myself, God, and the spirit, is that the Trinity? Is that the triumvirate for me? So that gets into another thing in terms of like the river of thought, trials and tribulations, but then the tributary, and that's playing off of tribulations, an estuary and Bay of Pigs, and that's the ocean of emotion, and like a sea of being, and the Bay of Pigs, which, Kennedy and Cuba and setting up missiles, possibly in the communists or the Russians were going to set missiles to try and launch at the U.S., and that is one of the initiators of the Cold War, and what would have happened post-Sputnik, and if Kennedy, they had tried to raid Cuba, got caught, and it was a total botched mission, but it exposed the U.S. involvement overseas, whatever. And so it's like keeping my own records to ensure, and it's a record, like record keeping, but then also records like what DJs use, keeping my own records in order to ensure my community will always have a place and a crate to dig. And I build a home for the homies so the creatives always have a space that's safe to live. So when you dig in crates, you're looking through history. You understand musicology, music history. But also a place to dig, like if you want to build a home, and then to have a safe space to live. But why bother? Is safety a false concept like freedom, right? Are we ever safe? And what is freedom? Free to do what? Free from what? And it's a question that's asked, and people, like, if you really push them, what is freedom? It gets really interesting. Is freedom just doing whatever you want? But I'm trapped in this body. I can't fly. I can't do a lot of things. I can't, metamorph into something. And so then I start thinking through this idea of like, yeah, is anything free, right? I feel trapped in my body, but this body allows me to experience the infinitude of what life offers. So in a way, by having this body, I'm open or able to experience an infinitude of things. So in a way, by being trapped, I then have the freedom. And so that's also playing off this idea of, are our freedoms, trappings, are our trappings able to give us insight and experiences, right? And so maybe it's all in your mind. So even though I wasn't born with the wings, maybe I'll use my mind to develop flight like the Wright brothers. So when I say like, is safety a false concept like freedom? I feel trapped by my body, but my body allows me to experience the infinitude of what life offers. So even though I wasn't born with wings, maybe I'll use my mind to develop flight like the Wright brothers. So even if we can't do things in the now, maybe we can use our minds. Maybe we can work collectively and do things together. So maybe my options are infinite. So I just need to connect the copper wire, and maybe I'll learn to teleport like Nightcrawler. And then that gets into, like Mutant X Gene, and like, is there more inside of ourselves we don't even know? So I don't even need to build a plane. Maybe inside of me is the ability, right? So started from the bottom and still mutter in the gutter. I write day and night, and just recently started considering myself an author. I've always considered myself a vanguard visionary that wanted to field of dreams like Kevin Costner. I built it, and they came, and then we had to close the shutters. So Edgar Allan Poe supposedly died in the gutter, and now is a famous writer. And so this idea, is our art ever going to be known to people while we're alive? Should we expect that? Is that an unreal expectation? Is it okay that we work so hard and we don't even realize what we are? And so, like, I've been writing for who knows how much of my life, but I only made a book in the past year. Hey, how y'all doing? And what does that mean, right? And then I built the field of dreams. Like Kevin Costner is like, if you build it, they will come. And we did with Brooklyn Wildlife. We built it. People came. And then we had to close the shutters because of the pandemic, right? Back to the concept of the verse. And to finish the verse, then I'm like, but if we look at what happened in 2020 and 2021, the one thing you can say is I didn't stop. Right, like build the pyramid, the ziggurat, which is like the step pyramid. That's for worship. That's for ceremony. That's for ritual, right? And I believe music and art are tied into ritual and ceremony. And so we built the pyramids in our minds, right? And what we have built in terms of our art community is a world wonder to me. The folks that helped us build Brooklyn Wildlife, the folks that have helped us build Gamba, the folks that have helped us with Black land ownership, it's the equivalent of the community coming together to do what's never been done. And so we built the ziggurat. And in 2021, know that I didn't stop. And so whether it's, getting my little pinky toe amputated in 2019, whether it's going through immunotherapy and my body changing because there's medication to hope that I don't have a recurrence of cancer, whether it's the pandemic hitting and all the things that happened, no, I didn't stop. We going back to the future, 144,000 gigawatts. And that's another reference to Back to the Future. All right, I got to go charge my computer so we can do more of these. But that's a little breakdown of the lyrics. So, like, when I write a verse, even though it only takes 30 seconds or a minute and a half to rap the verse, it's a lot in it. It's not just a bunch of words stuck together. It's not just, yo, Chris, you just saying some shit to try to act like you know shit other people don't know. Nah, this is like, I view the world a certain way, and the best way for me to convey it has been through hip-hop, and now doing some of these like videos where I can explain the hip-hop. And some people say you shouldn't have to explain your art. If the art is dope, people feel it, they get it, they know it. On the other hand, there are some things that you might need to explain. And there are some movies that I thought were visually dope, but when people explained the metaphors, it made a lot more sense. When people gave me the history of why that filmmaker shot it that way, or what were the reference points, or gave me the background so I could go research and then see the influences and the analogies and the kind of allusions that are being made, it can help. And so hopefully this video helped, and I hope you like the raps, and I'll be in touch. All right, peace. All right, but lyric breakdown 3. I'll just do... Let me see. I mean, I wanted to go through a couple of joints. I won't do a full breakdown, but I will get into it, kind of. All right. We live in an age of mandated vaccinations. I won't say that man made it or manufactured the patients, but in the past, businessmen have handcrafted statesmen to get the cash, slave papers instead of bus drivers and staffs of black spacemen. They say it started with bats and soup. The meek shall inherit the earth, and the wretched is mentioned in the beatitudes. Now it's kids in cages, cave ravers, and magic flutes. Fake news, it's impossible not to confuse facts from truth and fiction. Life can't be reduced to demographics and statisticians. Handmaidens' tale, sterilization, traps, mass, Activision, mad division, mass captivation, incarceration. Now back to the basics, spread love and go have some children. But when was freedom free? Back when Stairway to Heaven was an 8-minute spine tingle single. Back when Bob Marley was singing songs of freedom and the tunes weren't corporate jingles for you to mingle to. Back when the Beatles hadn't stolen black and brown music and Rolling Stone just listened to the blues with appreciation. Or maybe I'm just wishing on stars like Ringo, Twinkle, Twinkle. Or maybe I dream lucidly from Thucydides to Rip Van Winkle. But now the appropriation's inappropriate, and I've been canceled most of the mainstream and uber corporate since Rocky and Bullwinkle. Let's make time wrinkle. Have you considered the following? Unfollowing everyone you don't know in real life and let life be real, like Cypress Hill, DJ Muggs, and Sin Dog. Log off and stay uninvolved. Knowledge God, problem solved. I've been Prague. My life is improv, and at the end, is it winner take all? Or maybe it's all been wrong since Boss Hogg, General Lee. Now it's biohazard, dukes, duchess, princes, princesses, public enemy, royal family, symbolic interaction, anthrax, and colonial past, colonial post-capitalist dystopian anti-human society for the inhumane order of opulence. Hold on, let me do that part again. My life is improv, and at the end, it's winner take all. Or maybe it's all been wrong since Boss Hogg, General Lee. Now it's biohazard, dukes, duchess, princes, princesses, public enemy, royal family, symbolic interaction, anthrax, colonial, post-capitalist, dystopian, anti-human society for the inhumane order of opulence. And the operation is Delta Force, change agents. So here's a brave statement. I love you. Does that vulnerability make you uncomfortable? Well, bathe in it. Soak it in like diesel fumes. And if you have a problem, don't post about it on Facebook. Tell me in real life, lockdown's ending, so I'll see you soon. The next part gets intense like too much incense and you may need to leave the room. Kubrick only told part of my story. I never planned to leave the moon. As Kid Cudi and place a bet like gin rummy, I've been bent the minds of men and never needed spoons. So things about to get real trippy, funny, and spooky when I yell, Beetlejuice, 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 to counteract the people to let the evil loose to reproduce and reproduce like Pikachu. But they won't make sure the soil doesn't have heavy metals and it's safe to eat the fruits. The world's cold, the block is hot as volcanoes, so keep it cool. Now, they don't even believe in God, so it's no wonder why nobody believes in you. All right, so that piece, if I want to break it down a little bit, I know I messed up. I'm still learning these and reading through it, so I appreciate you rocking with me. The age of mandated vaccinations, I won't say that man made it or manufactured the patients, but in the past, businessmen have handcrafted statesmen. You got to wonder, is there a profit motive involved in any of the things happening now, right? And when we talk about mandated vaccinations, can we trust the government to mandate anything? Are there possibly things in the vaccines we don't know about? Is there a danger to pushing things through without going through your normal FDA means, right? On the other hand, is that just, again, like, bruh, people are dying and it's real and the pandemic is not a joke. And if motherfuckers can come up with a way to stop it, is it better to make sure people stay alive now and we find out in 15, 20 years if there are other side effects, but at least people are alive? And the idea that in the past, businessmen have handcrafted statesmen, so that a lot of the people in positions of power that make decisions for us are put in place by people that don't represent us and don't live a life like us. So to get the cash, slave papers instead of bus drivers and staffs of black spacemen. Now, these cards that have your vaccination log, as a black person, that makes me think of slave papers. I need this piece of paper to legitimize me being able to go into a certain place, or I can end up with issues. Now, I know it's a strong association, but understand the history of slave papers instead of bus drivers and staffs of black spacemen, right? And they say it started with bats and soup. We might find out that's true, but I don't know, all right? There may be other things. Is it ironic that the earlier cases of this started in Wuhan, where there was a laboratory that was working on very similar microbes as what this coronavirus is, right? Now, I'm not saying that someone purposely released it. I'm not saying that it got out. I don't know what they did in that lab. I make art. But what I'm saying is, did it really start with bats and soup? Okay? The meek shall inherit the earth of the wretched is mentioned in the beatitudes. So, like, the wretched of the earth is a book by Frantz Fanon. The beatitudes are the parts of the Bible where they say the meek shall inherit the earth and blessed are all that stuff. But now it's kids in cages, cave ravers, and magic flutes. So we still got people in cages at the border and their children. They've been separated from their families, right? Cave ravers, where during this pandemic, people still threw illegal parties underground. Like, I don't mean physically underground, but people were still gathering and risking who knows what by doing that. And magic flutes. You ever played, The Legend of Zelda? And the magic flute, take me away. It takes you to different parts of the board, right? Fake news, it's an impossible not to confuse facts from truth and fiction. how would we know the truth? And, you know, I keep coming back to this. How would we know what's accurate when you look at the news? It's all fake news. It's all constructed to sell as entertainment. Fox News brought on people from the sports world to help them with how they make news entertaining. When you look at the 24-hour news cycle, what has to be done to keep that interesting, right? It's entertainment. So how is it possible to not confuse facts from truth? Life can't be reduced to demographics and statisticians. Handmaidens, Tale, Sterilization, Traps, Mass, Activision, Mad Division, Mass Captivation, and Incarceration. So just because we have numbers and demographics and statistics does not mean that's what the world is. Like, the map is not the territory. So we use statistics, we use demographics to better understand the world, to give us insight into what is happening. But by the time you do a demographic or a statistical study, the world has changed, right? By the time we understand what happened in 2019, it's 2021. By the time we understand what happened in 2021, it's 2025. Now, it helps, but is it accurate? And are we then projecting a whole lot of like biases, and whether it's confirmation bias, whether it's this kind of unicorn thing of, well, because I've never seen a unicorn, I have to say they don't exist. Well, another person would say, well, no, just because you've never seen it, it doesn't mean they don't exist. And so we never know. We have to just accept that right now we don't know. And the story of Handmaidens' Tale, when you look at sterilization and what's happened, there are people who've been sterilized at the border. There are people who were given hysterectomies that did not want them. And so can you trust the government, right? Traps, Mask, Activision, which is a video game. And like, is it a game? We talking about Ender's Game? Are we talking about the lottery where the winner gets killed? You know, there are all these elements of game theory and economics. And what we do with that. Mass Activision, Mad Division, Mass Captivation, Incarceration. Now back to the basics. Spread love and go have some children. Seems simple, right? Mad people during this pandemic just had kids. They were in a crib together. They weren't using condoms. You know, they stopped taking their birth control. But when was freedom free? And that gets in this whole idea of like folks who want to use the mask as a symbol of freedom, of like, well, the government can't make me do anything. I'm going to do what I want and not wear a mask. And when are we ever free? When can we ever do whatever we want? When was there this time period of everything was perfect? Or this idea of make America great again? When was America ever great? What's this kind of fictional nostalgia we have for the past, as if things were ever awesome? And maybe they were. I don't know. That's for you to figure out. Was it back when Stairway to Heaven was an 8-minute spine tingle single? Can you imagine someone putting out a song like Stairway to Heaven nowadays? Like a 7 or 8 minute single that got played on the radio that goes through all those changes, that involves that type of instrumentation? Very not likely. Back when Bob Marley was singing songs of freedom and tunes weren't corporate jingles for you to mingle to. Bob Marley was talking about revolution. Bob Marley was talking about universal love. Bob Marley was saying very strong things about what black people need to do for themselves. When all of a sudden it gets played at every corporate activity. Right now, if someone were to have a guitar and we'd have a sing-along, 3 things are going to happen. At some point, they're going to play Bob Marley. At some point, they're going to play Radiohead. And at some point, they're going to play the Beatles. And it almost always, it's just like a matter of how much time will it take, right? Now, how is Bob Marley used to sell stuff? How is the message in Bob Marley now palatable to tons of white folks all around the world who never got the message of revolution, who never got the message of anti-capitalism, who never got the message of unity of black folks, right? Was it back when the Beatles hadn't stolen black and brown music and the Rolling Stones just listened to the blues with appreciation? Or maybe I'm wishing on stars like Ringo, because Ringo Starr, both the Rolling Stones and other groups have admitted how they stole from black blues artists and black rock artists. But to them, it was an appreciation. All right. Okay. And so maybe I'm wishing on stars like Ringo, Twinkle, Twinkle, because Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Now I'm taking old songs. Or maybe I dream lucidly from Thucydides to Rip Van Winkle. Thucydides is one of the earliest historians. So maybe I'm dreaming lucidly. Maybe I'm not just wishing on stars, and counting your stars or like whatever else. But maybe I'm dreaming, and dreams and hopes matter, but I'm rooted in history. So from Thucydides to Rip Van Winkle, you got to sleep, right? So the wishing on stars, Twinkle Twinkle, and then Rip Van Winkle all coming together. But now the appropriation is inappropriate, and I've been canceled most of mainstream and uber corporate since Rocky and Bullwinkle. Rocky and Bullwinkle were cartoon characters in a show when I was like 5 years old, whatever. But I've been over it. The mainstream has not worked for me for years. I've been canceled to uber corporate, right? So I don't even have these questions of appropriation and being inappropriate. I'm out that loop. Let's make time wrinkle. And A Wrinkle in Time, a book written, I believe, by a black woman, and it's one of the only kind of like movies I think was produced by Oprah or something like that, to where black characters on some time travel and futurism and science fiction, right? Have you considered the following: unfollowing everyone you don't know in real life and let life be real? Cypress Hill, DJ Muggs, and Sin Dog. Be Real is the high-pitched voice dude from Cypress Hill, Insane in the Membrane. And have you considered the following: unfollowing everyone you don't know in real life? Thinking about all this like computer interface and the way we view technology and how much of our lives are affected by people we don't even know. How often are we looking at TV? How often are we looking at things on the internet? How often are we on Instagram? And we feel like we have to do things in our life based on things people are saying that we've never met, that we know nothing about, that are totally fabricated. Some of these people get paid to say that stuff. Candace Owens, if you look into her history, she sued and won a case about racism. So when she says racism isn't real, you know she's lying. She's already benefited from the fact that there are legal steps you can take when racism occurs, right? But anyway, so we let life be real. Cypress Hill, DJ Muggs, and Sin Dog. Log off, stay uninvolved. Knowledge, God, problem solved. I've been prog. My life is improv, and at the end is a winner take all, or maybe it all is wrong since Boss Hogg and General Lee. And so log off. Like the idea of like, what's the dude? Timothy Leary was kind of like tune out, drop out, tune out, whatever. And instead of just turning off the TV, now it's like log off the computer sometimes. Sometimes like get out of the social media circle, right? Stay uninvolved. Knowledge God, that's 1 in 7. And that's some 5%er shit. If you listen to Wu-Tang, there's I don't know if it's Raekwon's album, but I think Knowledge God was one of their songs. And I, you don't got to go to summer school, shorty. You just listen to Wu-Tang double album. Problem solved. I've been prog, which is like progressive, like prog music, like prog rock, whatever. My life is improv, and at the end, winner take all. I don't even know, like, is there a winner in life? And so maybe it's all been wrong since Boss Hogg and General Lee, Dukes of Hazzard. So when I was playing with the little car from Dukes of Hazzard, it was General Lee, and it had the Confederate sign on the top, and I didn't understand why people in my family were mad at me for having that toy. I liked the TV show Dukes of Hazzard, and their car was cool. And see, this is how media can influence us. So I didn't even understand the symbols that were in the show that I watched. The people that made it, they knew that, right? And my family knew that. But I got in trouble for things I didn't know. But they were just trying to impart knowledge on me, right? And so the idea is, so maybe it's all been wrong since Boss Hogg, and Boss Hogg was in the Dukes of Hazzard was like the bad guy. So the cops were bad. See, people, there is unity, right? The cops have been bad for a while. But generally, now it's Biohazard, Dukes, Duchess, Princes, Princesses, Public Enemy, Royal Family. And so then I was thinking like of how worlds come together. And with General Lee, that's the Dukes of Hazzard. So Dukes, Duchess, and then I think of Prince Harry and what happened and Marilyn Markle, and she had to leave. And then Public Enemy, Royal Family. So then the black woman now is the Public Enemy, but Public Enemy is a rap group where they say Fear of a Black Planet. And they did collaborations with Anthrax. So it's Public Enemy, Royal Family, Symbolic Interaction, Anthrax, and Colonial Post-Capitalist Dystopian Anti-Human Society for the Inhumane Order of Opulence and the Operations Delta Force. So Order of Operation, right, is in there. Then this idea of Anti-Human Society for the Inhumane Order of Opulence. I'm just like thinking to myself of like, what is it we worship in our current society? It's inhumane, but we're humans. And so we have to embody anti-human systems in order to try to experience and enjoy our own humanity. Well, that's dystopian, right? That's not utopian, that's dystopian. And that's in a colonial post-capitalist world where why are we talking about capitalism, socialism, and communism anymore? It doesn't really match anything. And symbolic interaction is an idea in sociology that was post-structuralism or post-structural functionalist ideas. About meaning and about symbols and how things are relative to each person in a certain social inculcation, right? And so the order of operations is Delta Force. Now, change is Delta. Like in math, the Delta, the triangle is the symbol for change. So the order of operation is change, right? That's entropy. That's like law of life, that like change is the only constant. But Delta Force is a military group. And there's a movie, I think, with Chuck Norris, Delta Force. But change agents. So here's a brave statement. I love you. Does that vulnerability make you uncomfortable? We'll bathe in it. And my mode now is love. It's not violence. It's not antagonism. It's not antipathy. It's not hate. It's not disassociation. It's not isolation. It's love. And the only thing I can see as a way of changing the world around us is love and action, working together, right? And so that's a brave statement. Like, I love you. I don't even know you, and I love you. The people that I do know that are mean to me, I still love you. I have to tell myself that I love myself, you know? And does that vulnerability make you uncomfortable? Well, yeah, we're not used to saying it. We're not used to experiencing it. If I say, dukes, duchess, princes, princesses, public enemy, royal family, symbolic interaction, anthrax, colonial, post-capitalist, dystopian, anti-human society for the inhumane order of opulence, and Operation Delta Force, change agents. So here's a brave statement. I love you. Does that vulnerability make you uncomfortable? Well, bathe in it, right? We got to soak that in. Soak it in like diesel fumes. So now I'm back to the world around us. And if you have a problem, don't post about it on Facebook. Tell me in real life. Lockdown is ending, so I'll see you soon. How often do we have disagreements, and instead of talking about it, we make an immediate assumption and then cut people off? And I get the idea of you have to protect yourself. You can't allow harmful people or toxic people to poison you. But don't post on the internet. I'll see you in real life. Let's talk. Let's chat. Now, the next part gets intense, like too much incense, and you may need to leave the room. You ever been in someone's house where they got too much incense? Can't breathe. Kubrick only told part of my story. I never planned to leave the moon. As Kid Cudi placed a bet like gin rummy, I've been bent the minds of men and never needed spoons. So Stanley Kubrick did The Shining. Again, that's about the mind. And the black person helped save the day. But also supposedly Stanley Kubrick did the film about us going to the moon and that America never went to the moon. I'm playing a joke off of that and conspiracy theories. And Kid Cudi had that idea of man on the moon. So as Kid Cudi placed a bet like gin rummy. And Kid Cudi's song, like, day and night, the lonely stoner has it, it's him like sorting out his kind of depression, internal conflicts or whatever. But I've bent the minds of men and never needed spoons. That's a play off the Matrix, where the kid's like, there is no spoon. How do you bend it? And again, it's in the mind. You think that's air you're breathing? Another reference to the movies. And so things are about to get real trippy, funny, and spooky when I yell, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Have you ever seen that movie, Michael Keaton? It is trippy, funny, and spooky. It's a Tim Burton film. And so if you've ever seen Edward Scissorhands, Alice in Wonderland, there are a bunch of Tim Burton movies. But Beetlejuice is wild. It's macabre because it's about death, but it's also hilariously funny. It has music in it, and it's just trippy and spooky, right? So when I yell, and you bring them about by yelling Beetlejuice, 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 to counteract the people to let the evil loose to reproduce and reproduce like Pikachu. And we got to do something because people keep promoting violence. People keep promoting death. People keep promoting hate. And we got to do something to counteract that. Because they letting the evil loose to reproduce and reproduce like Pikachu. Now that gets into Pokemon. You got to catch them all, and that's a whole other thing. And collectibles and cards and NFTs and how things have value. But these people that let the evil loose to reproduce and reproduce, but they won't make sure the soil doesn't have heavy metals and it's safe to eat the fruits. So when it's like Beetlejuice, 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 to counteract the people that let the evil loose to reproduce and reproduce to Pikachu. But they won't make sure the soil doesn't have heavy metals and it's safe to eat the fruits. The world's cold, but the block is hot as volcanoes, so keep it cool. They don't believe in God, so no wonder nobody believes in you. So when I'm playing off of that, the idea of the heavy metals, and we need safe food. We need food and water. It's that simple. The world's cold, like, yo, it's a cold world. Like, no one's going to show you love. But before I said, I love you, people will show you love, But the block is hot as volcanoes. So the block is hot. That's a play off of that little song of Cash Money, like, the block is hot, ha, ha. The police, right? They still out there. So keep it cool. Now, if people don't even believe in God, it's no wonder that nobody believes in you. If you think that we are extensions of God or the heavenly, and people don't even believe in God anymore, then why would they believe in you? Now, that's also to say, like, do people believe more in the book of the Bible or their religion or their structure or their authority or the words of men that were written? Or do they believe in the principle? Do they believe in God? And so you can't be frustrated when nobody believes in you. You can't be mad when people don't believe in you, or when what you say, you can't be upset when you say things and people don't believe in you. They don't even believe in God. You can't be mad when you're trying to do things and people say you can't do it. They don't believe in God, And I don't even know if I believe in God, right? So I'm also talking about myself. Like, what do I expect in my life when I'm still having issues connecting with what could be considered the holy, or considered with has given me everything I currently have? All right. So that's another lyric breakdown. Now, I think that took 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. So one rap, right, is all this. And I implore people that when they listen to hip hop, go deeper. When you see me and you see me rap, ask me about the rap, right? It's not just surface level. It's not me just throwing some words together. These things are like, yo, that one little part to where it's like biohazard, dukes, duchess, princess, princesses, public enemy, royal family, symbolic interaction, anthrax, colonial, post-capitalist, dystopian, anti-human society for the inhumane order of opulence, and the Operation Delta Force, change agents. So here's a brave statement. I love you, right? That's a lot right there. Like, Biohazard was a rock group. Dukes of Hazzard, connecting that. Duchess, Princess, Princesses, Royal Family, and like what happened with Prince Harry and Marilyn Markle. Public Enemy, rap group. Then Symbolic Interaction, Anthrax. Public Enemy, Anthrax did a song. Colonial, post-capitalist, dystopian, anti-human society for the inhumane order of opulence. Yo! That boy's spitting. All right, so I'm going to catch up with y'all soon. Enjoy that. Peace.